Hey everybody, it's Natalie Bencivenga. I am back with Dr. Natalie Gentile because guys, we had so much fun last week talking about what is going on in this hellscape, also known as our healthcare system. And we thought, let's just bring it back because all of you shared so many thoughts and we have so many thoughts and there's even more to talk about in today's edition of Facts Over Fear. Dr. G, before we kick things off, I've got 3 topics I want to touch on today. How are you doing? Just
I was good until we talked about the topics we're talking about today.
Yeah, until we decided, let's do this again. It was so fun last week. All right, just so we know, everybody, we're on the edge of sanity, but here we are teetering together. We got 3 big topics today. The first one, I think a lot of people have heard about, but we're really going to talk about this specifically from a clinical perspective around the CDC advisors that have voted to overturn decades-long policy on hepatitis B vaccines for infants. I read some startling statistics on the before and after when we made these recommendations and what could happen because of that. So, Dr. G, of course, I look forward to having your professional opinion as we weigh in on this. Then we're going to move into a little bit of a sideshow that's happening. I think this is only picking up speed and getting worse, and it's the whole grifter's going to grift. And Dr. G, you talk a lot about this on your social media. Today, we're going to talk about one that you brought to my attention earlier. If you guys know Savanah Chrisley from Chrisley Knows Best, her parents, of course, ended up in prison. The prosecution had successfully argued that there was sufficient evidence to support the original jury's guilty verdicts for bank fraud and tax evasion, which is why her parents, the reality stars, went to jail, and Trump pardoned them. So they are out and they've started grifting again. And now their new thing is called Good Girl RX. We're going to talk about all of that and the Vax-Ax pills that you can take. That's right, Vax-Ax. What could go wrong? And to really round out this conversation, we're going to discuss what's going on with the CMS repealing the minimum staffing requirements for skilled nursing long-term care facilities. This one has me very worried. I've been paying attention to this story. And Dr. G, you put out an amazing video about this just the other day that I watched, and it really just got me all fired up, which is why we're now talking about it. So thank you for that. All right. So to kick things off, let's go back to NPR's article that came out just a couple of days ago and has since been updated. The CDC advisors vote to overturn decades-long policy on hepatitis B vaccines for infants. In a historic vote, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's vaccine advisors have recommended narrowing the agency's hepatitis B immunizations guidelines for newborns. Now, the result, if approved by the acting director, will be a rollback of a universal recommendation. By the way, this has never been a mandate. It's been a recommendation to start this immunization at birth, a standard practice for more than 30 years here in the United States. And it has been credited with dramatically lowering liver disease caused by the virus. Dramatically meaning what I read from the hepatitis B website, their foundational website, was that we went from 20,000 cases to 20 after this vaccination. That is so staggering of a difference. I didn't even know what to say. My jaw was on the floor. And so the idea that they want to roll this back doesn't make any sense to me as just a normal person. How did this feel as a physician when you heard about this? And what has you the most concerned?
The other day, I was looking through some of the information about MAHA and looking on the MAHA website. And then I was looking on the White House website, specifically talking about these recommendations being rolled back. And it's interesting how they couch it within reversing chronic disease or talking about reducing chronic disease. Yet, this type of move, hepatitis B can be a deadly or chronic disease. This type of move actually goes completely against that mission. So I think it's just yet another example of an ironic move within the MAHA bigger movement here. I have grave concerns as a physician about this. And I also am interested. There was a statement put out by Trump recently on his facts sheet on the White House website that was saying, we plan to look at all vaccine schedules for children now based on how it's being done across other developed countries. And I thought for a sec, like, well, does that mean that science here in the United States just is not valued anymore? And I find this greater move of devaluing science, just completely not following it, incredibly terrifying, as a parent and as a doctor.
And we used to be, leaders in that space. Like other countries, would look to the United States and go, oh, okay, they're doing this. We're going to do this. And now my concern is we're just going to be completely left in the dust. And I think other countries are going to start limiting Americans being able to come into the country without an updated vaccine card. We're already seeing this because of what is going on with measles. And to your point, it's just like, what is the purpose of this? Because when you're talking about MAHA, you're speaking about Make America Healthy Again, which is sort of the health arm of the MAGA movement. But it seems like everything that they're doing is going to have that opposite effect. And, I went down a very dark mindset after I read this article in particular, because for me, this feels more of just this calling the herd. I hate to think about how all of these things are really interconnected, but what I see, if I take like the big picture here, is we have this AI revolution that is coming, and a lot of jobs are going to just disappear overnight. We're going to have a whole population of people that is not going to have access to being able to work. And this almost feels a little like, oh, let's just call the herd. And I worry because I don't think we're talking about it enough how the eugenics playbook is being played out here. And when we're talking about getting rid of vaccinations for babies, I don't see what the purpose of that is other than to create widespread panic, more confusion, and more distrust in our medical system than ever before, Dr. G. And, people are very up in arms about this. You and I follow several different creators that have huge followings. They're doctors themselves. They work in immunology. And I can't imagine how you all must feel with this level of frustration. And I have to tell you, I got into it with someone on your comments, and I never do this. Usually, like, I'm just going to stay out of it. But it really annoyed me because what's frustrating to me is when people are applauding these moves and they can't tell you why they're applauding them based in any fact or science. All they do is give you like a pseudoscience cliff note from another personality that they heard online. But when you actually look at the information being provided, these vaccines have saved countless lives. What do you make of these people that are sort of positioning themselves as pseudo authority? And why do you think we're ripe for this right now?
So I think distrust in healthcare is at its absolute peak. I think, honestly, the pandemic was just like an appetizer to what we're experiencing now, unfortunately. And it was awful then, right?
Yeah.
And because there is so much distrust in medicine, in science, we have a population ripe for cherry picking when it comes to what we want to hear. So, like, example, by saying we are now going to go to other countries that are developed nations and look at what their vaccination schedules are, that's cherry picking information from other places to try and fit a broader agenda here in the United States. But at the same time, our science here is good enough to show that GLP-1 medications are amazing for weight loss and longevity. So like, okay, we can cherry pick that. We like that answer here. But we also are going to cherry pick that we're going to defund a bunch of work by the NIH. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't cherry pick what science is quality science and what isn't, just to meet a broader agenda. And I think when we start to do that, it is exactly what is happening on the boots on the ground here between the doctor-patient relationship, where we find that people have such distrust in physicians that they just cherry pick what they want to follow and what they don't when it comes to recommendations from their doctors, right? And this is all the agenda that MAHA has made up, which is you can't trust science, medical freedom is, of utmost importance. And in the end, babies are suffering, right? Like, in the end, human beings are suffering and people are going to die. It's very scary, and I hate to say that, but it's not really that far-fetched to think about it.
No, it's not. I wanted to touch on something else too when we talk about this idea around medical freedom, and we talk about sort of the language that's being used. And we really are speaking to a larger shift in how we view medicine. And you said something really valuable, I think, last week that's worth reiterating again, which is how we're looking at this sort of public health from a rugged individualism perspective and how you really can't do that. And if we're looking at one vaccine this way, we're going to start looking at all vaccines this way. Can you talk a little bit about the danger of not thinking about other people when we're thinking about our public health?
So a prime example is happening in Florida right now. We've got a pertussis surge. So as a parent, seeing a kiddo with whooping cough is super scary. Like when your baby can't breathe, that is the ultimate scary. And that's what's happening. So we've got this surge in cases that's happening down in Florida in a setting where pertussis vaccination rates are diminishing. And this is one of those instances where we say the greater good is affected by individual decisions. We see it with measles, the same thing happening there, right? And what I think is really terrifying is who is going to take care of the people? So those individuals that are so focused on rugged individualism still are going to desire help when they're in need. Yet they're not willing to give the preventive help to work on a public health, broader scale. And they're just completely missing the mark there. And I don't know where it went wrong with regard to public health messaging, right? Because something had to have gone wrong.
Yeah.
And I do think the pandemic had a lot to do with it, right? Like, I think that's where a lot of this went extremely downhill, where people were feeling like their rights were infringed upon and they lost sight of the greater good and the health of the greater good.
Yeah. And that's what breaks my heart. I mean, I think you know me well enough. It's like when we stop taking care of one another, it starts to allow this degradation of society. And we're really seeing that play out. And I want to move into our next conversation point because to me, this fits in so well because when you have that level of mistrust and you have the breakdown of the patient-doctor relationship, it's perfect timing for people with perhaps less altruistic motives to move in. So before we talk about Savanah Chrisley, I just want to ask you, how much money do you make off of giving people, let's say, the COVID-19 vaccine?
That's hilarious.
Okay.
We actually lose money with our vaccine.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So guys, just to clarify and clear that up, she's not making money vaccinating patients. You're making the choice to vaccinate your patients because you are a doctor. And that's like part of your oath is to like take care of people.
I'm a family doctor. That's what I do.
I was just curious. Curious. Okay. So there's a lot of people that are, of course, saying that is, not true. These are not doctors, of course, saying that. So take that for what you will. And they're doing things now like creating their own supplements, their own powders. I mean, you and I did a really fun one with Kourtney Kardashian a few months back talking about lollipops that are good for your, vaginal health. Okay. So anything that people can do other than the basics, other than, connecting directly to their doctors. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what Savanah Chrisley is doing. And for those of you who may not know who she is, she was on a long time running reality television show called Chrisley Knows Best, which was really focused on her family. And in particular, her parents, and they were sentenced to prison not too long ago because they were committing tax evasion and bank fraud. They didn't even get to have an appeals case because prosecution had shown so much evidence. Well, they have since been pardoned by the Trump administration, Trump in particular, because Savanah, who is a very big, well-known Republican, she went out there and really campaigned for her parents. And hey, I mean, it worked. And since then, she has talked about running for public office. But in the interim, she has decided to start a company called Good Girl RX. I want to talk about that name specifically here in a moment. But I just want to show you guys, and I don't have anything fancy here. So I'm just going to literally hold up my screen and just show you some of the stuff that she is sharing as one of the new wellness influencers, or she'd like to be. And this company that she started, this particular, supplement is called VaxXaxe, VaxXaxe. And it's immunity, recovery, and resilience is the tagline.
She also uses detox a lot when advertising it.
That's a really fun one.
Detox.
And we're going to talk about that. So this says wellness for the whole family, one trio total care. So you can buy these as a subscription. There's lots of pills, wellness supplements, powders, etc. Dr. G, you sent this to me this morning, and
Great.
it was a really great way to wake up. So I'm just going to start there. And when I saw that, I was like, what is this? And then when I saw who, I was like, oh, we've got to talk about this. We've got to talk about this. Let's discuss a little bit about your frustration, first of all, as a physician, when you see someone like a Savanah Chrisley with a large social media platform and a very specific angle putting out a product called VaxAx. I mean, let's just start there with the name of it.
I mean, I just think at this point it's funny because she's not, there's nothing behind the scenes here. This is very blatantly like what she's doing and saying. So it's very aligned with kind of the bigger agenda of her and her type. I think it's she's got a business, baby.
Listen.
She's just trying to run a business, and she's speaking to the population who will absolutely buy into it. These are hilarious.
Scoop, sip, strengthen.
Also, like, what is her background with regard to wellness?
There isn't.
Or knowing
it. We can just
think so.
We can just say that.
So I think it's one of these things where I talk about it a lot on my social media, which are like the red flag words, the words that should kind of make you take pause. And she literally just takes the list and just puts them in all of her advertising. It's like detox, immune building, right? She's using all these words. And then to call something VaxAx implies to a normal person, a lay person, that this is to be the antithesis of vaccines in the sense of like vaccines are bad, we're going to get rid of them, but here are the benefits you will get instead, which implies that vaccines wouldn't give you those benefits. Complete, like, literally
garbage.
Has no idea how a human body works, but it's great advertising.
Dr. G, does the wellness industry make a lot of money?
Yeah, like along the like trillions and yeah.
So what I'm hearing is like there's some money to be made in pushing in pushing a lot of these products, and I find it really interesting that this name of this line in general, her business or this business that she's supporting and showcasing is called Good Girl RX. And I want to connect some dots for everybody, just real quick. Okay. We are moving closer and closer and closer. Some would say we're already there, into a fascist state in this country. We've seen the Trump regime turning its back on democracy. They just released a statement about this. I did a video on this yesterday, talking about how they're going to empower more autocracies and they're moving away from democracy promotion overseas. Okay. We have seen the last time this happened, women in particular are told to get smaller and skinnier and tinier and take up less space and move back into the home. We've seen this. This is a textbook scenario that plays out. When you see, and Savanah actually did a interview, I think it was with People or Us Weekly recently, where she talked about how she just wants to get skinny. So she's on one of the GLP shots. And you see a company that she has started or is a part of called Good Girl RX. To me, all of this it's never about really your weight. It's never about health. It is about obedience. And the idea that you're calling your company Good Girl RX implies, one, the infantilization of women, right? You're a girl, not a woman. That's why I steer clear of girl boss language. I don't like that word in front. For so many reasons, but this being one. It's the infantilization of that. And it's also this implication of saying, I am small, I am valued, right? I take up less space, I am valuable because I take up less space. I can create a sense of influence in a space, but it has to be within a certain one. And so for me, when we're looking at fascism, the wellness industry, and obedience, we have to talk about the trad wife pipeline that leads them right into buying into this grifter culture. And we're preying on a lot of mothers. That really pisses me off. Can you talk a little bit about what you hear from, in particular, women, but anybody, when they're perhaps intrigued by some of these ideas? Do they talk to you about them as a physician? What do you try to explain? How do you counteract this narrative?
Well, something to add, if you look on that profile for her Good Girl RX, she has semaglutide, I think she said, for like $100 a month. So she's selling GLP-1s as well.
Wow.
As part of this,
okay.
right?
Okay.
I mean, so that's all,
built in, baby.
That was interesting. I think the other thing to note with a name like Good Girl RX is we should break down the good and the RX part too. So if we use the word good, that gives a sense of morality, right? And if we're talking about morality around your behaviors, morality around your appearance, you are a good girl if you fit this mold, right? You are a good girl. Um, I think that's a scary thing, especially around women who are already constantly bombarded with morality around food choices, morality around body shape and size. This is a good thing to eat. This is a bad thing to eat. This is a good way for your body to look. This is a bad jean size. Like this is not news. Okay. She's just taking from a playbook that's already been there for many, 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 many decades upon decades. RX, interesting, right? To bring in a medical component, yet you doubt medical establishments. You use the medical establishment when it serves you. And that's the cherry picking that we're talking about. To use the word RX when it serves you, when you don't know anything about RXing, which is prescribing. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to swear. So I think that's really interesting. So yes, I hear this all the time from women. As a woman consumer, I feel it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so fascinating to be preyed upon as mothers in particular. She has it right there on her website or on her Instagram page. Many of the things on there are like, give your kid the immunity that they need, or that like in a way that can help them. So I think it's very fascinating to prey on women, just like the vaccine rhetoric, anti-vax rhetoric out there is preying on women, especially mothers. And it's, you posted about it the other day when we talked about it actually last week, was that senator talking about how women are the ones making the health decisions in the household, women really driving the financial aspect around healthcare. So again, it all falls on women. It's all on women, but guess what? It's also in a bigger state of being that is making women smaller and diminishing our voices. So where do we end up there? I'm not sure. But it's a really scary direction.
It is. And if you want to learn more on this topic, I'm about to read this book myself, and I was telling you about this book, Dr. G. Maybe you could try to flip through it too, and we could talk about it in January. Pink Pilled: Women and the Far Right. It's a journalist who interviews, her name's Louise Shearing, and she interviews leading experts and infiltrates communities of trad wives and femtrolls to provide an analysis on this exact pipeline. And so that's something I definitely want to discuss more in the new year. Is we talk a lot about men and them being sort of red-pilled in this sort of matrix way that sends them down the incel track. We're not really doing the same kind of deep, hard analysis on the pink pilling of women that sends them from this trad wife, which on the surface, it's like, who doesn't like to watch somebody make sourdough? I don't have a problem with that, but it shouldn't lead us to now we're not vaccinating our children against measles. Like, that is wild, right? So we're going to talk more about that in the coming months. To wrap today up, there was a topic that you discussed, and if you guys haven't followed Dr. Natalie Gentile, she just hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. Big deal. She's growing super fast, and you did a great video on this the other day, and I really wanted to dive more into it because you connected some really important dots. The CMS, and this is according to AHA.org, the CMS repeals minimum staffing requirements for skilled nursing in long-term care facilities. This is a big deal. The agency is also removing the requirement for nursing homes to have 24/7 on-site RN services. Wow. And is reinstating its prior policy requiring facilities to use the services of RNs for at least 8 hours a day. Okay. This is wild to me. My mom was a nurse for 40 years, has since retired, and her and I talk a lot about what has happened to the nursing industry just since she's left in the past 8 years. And when I think of what the stories my mom used to tell me coming home from work, I mean, my mom saved people's lives. Like, that is not an exaggeration. Like, straight up saved lives, took care of people at their very worst, and showed them nothing but the best care and so much compassion and just respect and dignity. And to see not only nurses being reduced to this level of, they may take away their professional, acknowledgments and titles, but to also see their jobs disappearing in a time where we have an aging population. We're going to need more skilled nurses than ever before. this upset me on such a level. I want you to share with people some of the highlights from your video that you talked about, because I think this is a story that's going under the radar and we need to be centering it.
Yeah, so an interesting one-liner from Dr. Oz, right, on behalf of CMS when talking about this move. He thinks that this Biden era ruling of you've got to have nursing staff consistently there was affecting access in rural and tribal communities for nursing facilities. And he thought that, it's really diminishing that type of access to care because of these requirements. I think that is a cop-out. So what we're seeing with nursing facilities is they're being more and more bought up by private equity. We have time and again shown that private equity owning healthcare facilities, ERs, skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes, is diminishing quality significantly. And so if we then also remove the safety of consistent nurse staffing, we are further going to diminish safety and quality of care in these types of settings. And I think that's terrifying. Like, this deregulation alone, plus add in the removal of professional status for nursing, plus add in, I mentioned, the loan caps, so more and more people not able to afford going into healthcare in the first place. Our workforce is just going to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. And when we have a diminishing workforce with no regulation around how places like this need to be staffed, you're just going to have some jag setting up a nursing home on a street corner in a rural setting, say we're serving an underserved population with no safety in place, no regulation in place. How is that helping a population? I think there's probably, follow the money. There's probably something behind this that has to do with money. I think private equity is part of the puzzle here.
I was just really proud of you for speaking out on this topic, in particular, bringing in the private equity angle, because we're seeing them infiltrate every single aspect of American life, from our residential housing, which is becoming hugely problematic, right? That's why the rents keep getting jacked up and less people can afford single family homes, to now they're impacting our nursing home facilities, which, let's be honest, are already strained. You already have people working in these spaces that are underpaid. They are already understaffed. And now we're just going to amplify this problem. And once again, it goes back to it's feeling less like a conspiracy every day, this idea around eugenics and calling the herd, because this country, we are so steeped in late stage capitalism. We are at the cancer eating itself stage, where it's like, okay, the very old and those that cannot work because of health concerns are no longer useful to the state, right? Which is fascism. And so because of that, we don't really care about them anymore. So, oh well, grandma's going to die because she can't get into a nursing home because, one, she can't afford it. And two, let's say she gets in, there's not staffing there in the middle of the night. She has a heart episode. She dies. Oh well. This is where we're at. This started with if you remember, during COVID, they talked about, we're going to have, these death panels, and they tried to terrorize people. And now here we are, and they're actually doing the things that they had said they were against many years ago. And I find it seems right now with this regime, every accusation is somehow a confession. And I think we need to start listening to what they're saying and who they're attacking, because actually it's a projection about what they are doing themselves. And we talked a little bit about the connection last week to Dr. G around how some of the Republican rhetoric around healthcare right now is further privatization of health insurance, and how that will somehow help our communities. I also want to reiterate, everybody, I'm bringing up Republicans and I'm bringing up the Trump regime because they are the ones in power and they are the ones making these decisions right now. But this is not a partisan issue, in the sense that we've had plenty of time on both sides of the aisle to fix the rights here and fix the situation around healthcare. It just so happens right now we're seeing it sort of being expedited under this particular regime. But I welcome bipartisan efforts, as always. Anyone that has good ideas around fixing our healthcare and getting big money out of our healthcare system, please, join the conversation, because this isn't about right or left at the end of the day. This is truly just right or wrong. When you look at the larger landscape here, Dr. G, as we wrap up, and obviously we're going to continue to do these very regularly. What is it that you hope people will understand about your role in healthcare as not only just a direct primary care physician, but as a family doc, and the importance of reconnecting to your family doc, or if you don't have one, trying to find access to one?
There is, I think there's this sense that because access to care is so challenging right now, because it's impossible to get a hold of your doctor, because it's impossible to get in and see the same person each time, there's this automatic assumption that doctors just don't care anymore. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I think what is people are not realizing, the general population is not realizing, is the healthcare workers are not okay.
Yeah.
And we have such significant strains put on healthcare workers and such unrealistic expectations that we are treated as warm bodies, we are widgets, and we are replaceable, according to the bigger powers that be that run these healthcare institutions. And that is not an excuse for lack of access or burnt out doctors or people feeling like they're not treated well in a healthcare setting, but it is the reality of what's going on here. And until we can reconnect the doctor-patient relationship and reestablish trust, I think we're going to continue to see mass exodus of people leaving healthcare and more things like AI, thinking that it can replace medical decision making, right? More things like people of much lower training doing the jobs of doctors because there's not going to be any other option. Because doctors are just going to leave. Healthcare workers are going to be done and not put up with this anymore. I think that we need now more than ever to come together as doctors and patients, as opposed to be split apart, and really try and take care of each other, because it seems that all other avenues are pointing toward a further, valley between us.
Yeah. And I think it speaks to the divisions in equity and classism as well. To your point, these valleys continue to increase between who has and who has not. And so to your point, trying to bring people together, and if for no other reason, just to have these conversations. That's why I think this regular connection is very important. So if you like what you're listening to, or if you found this helpful or interesting, please share, please subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, consider being a paid subscriber, as we are trying to bring you original, important content and information, analysis, and of course, these interviews as often as we can. And Salting the Vibe wanted to give us a friendly reminder: COVID isn't over. We are not in a post-COVID world, even though everyone has adopted MAGA logic when it comes to COVID. Mm-hmm. Trust me, my friend, I couldn't agree more. And we try to be very mindful. We try not to say here,
back when COVID.
Back when, yes. We know COVID is very much around. And please, if you are out in public, mask in crowded spaces with a good N95 or K95, get your vaccinations. If you don't feel well, test and isolate. Just try to take care of yourselves and each other as always. Dr. G, this was such a pleasure. I appreciate you speaking truth to power and using your position as a physician to really shed light on difficult conversations and topics that I sometimes feel are not getting their due. So if people want to follow you, where can they check out your work?
I'm very active on Instagram at Natalie Gentile MD. I also have a Substack, same name, and a YouTube channel, same name.
That's right. And I recommend subscribing, checking out, following her on all three. She's always giving just great insights, advice, and support on how you can best take care of yourselves and the people you love. And as always, everyone, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.